Welcome back, everyone, to the Moms Like Me podcast powered by Support Now. I'm thrilled to be back in the seat. It's been a couple weeks since I've podcasted, so I might be a little rusty, but I have a feeling our guest today will make it quite easy for me because she is quite inspiring, to say the least. And I've never had a guest quite like you, Danny. And I often like to give our guests the opportunity to introduce themselves. But for a little bit of background for our listeners, I think one of the things that I am often inspired by is when I come across moms that face really challenging moments, life-altering moments, and yet still endure to find a path that gives them their dignity, that gives them motivation to keep going. And you, Danny, certainly fit that bill with everything that you're doing. So, Danny Izzie, welcome to the podcast. I'm so thrilled to have the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, of course, with another fellow mom, especially one who does so much work in this space. So
Yeah,
it's a
of
pleasure.
course. Well, Danny, obviously, I would love for you to tell your story a little bit more. So, Danny's story is not one that she wasn't born in the situation she is now in. But why don't you describe a little bit more about what happened to you as you matured, as you got older?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I will start with the fact that my 40th birthday is coming up in a couple weeks. Okay, so
Woohoo! Happy
that's
birthday!
where I am in life, and I'm actually really excited. I think like my 40s are gonna be really, really good. Like 30 is the new 20 and now 40 is the new 30s. So anyway, I'm excited about that. It's gonna be a milestone for me. And especially kind of in like the arc of, my life. And, I sustained a profound disability when I was 23 years old. However long ago that was, I stopped counting. And I had a spinal cord injury in 2008 or 9. And that was due to just a random freak accident. And it resulted in me breaking my neck and rendering me paralyzed as a quadriplegic, which basically means that I have paralysis in my lower extremities as well as partial paralysis in my upper extremities. You can see me moving my arms a little bit, but my fingers don't move. My dexterity is pretty limited, and then I have some weakness in my arms. But despite all of that, over years of hard work and determination, I've managed to be fairly independent. Of course, that does mean that I do need assistance, but I've never seen needing assistance or caregiving as not being independent. To me, independence is really a state of mind. So that's really been my attitude through a lot of this, a lot of the challenges and figuring out how to do adult life and
Yeah.
be autonomous and then ultimately become a mother. I became a mother at 30 years old.
Yeah, so I wanna pause you there. It's a pretty incredible. Obviously incredibly sad and not expected what happened to you, and yet you are independent and a mom. And I know, as someone who is able-bodied, has 3 children, I cannot imagine. It's already so hard, right? It's just our motherhood is hard as it is. And so I think, and I know, I'm confident I'm not the first person that has said, "How in the world?" Both, do you do it, and how in the
Mm.
world did you have the courage to move forward with that decision, knowing some of the limitations you had physically and maybe
Yeah.
even emotionally as well?
Well, it took years of like wrapping my head around that really. I mean, I went from being somebody who didn't understand disability at all, not just from a physical perspective, but also from a lifestyle perspective. The only thing I understood were the stigmas that existed around what it means to be disabled. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, I carried a lot of those, and I had to overcome some of that internally to be able to get to a point where I could be like, wait a minute, I deserve children. I can have children too. You know, I can do this, even though I do have several limitations. If I really think about it, this is something I really want,
Yeah.
I can figure this out.
Wow.
And I always loved children. Like when I was in college, I taught kids, and when I was a kid, I loved babysitting. I just always loved kids. I always knew I wanted kids, and I, e- s- after I sustained my spinal cord injury, I worked really hard to become as physically independent as possible. I still rely on a caregiver every single day to come in my home and help me up. And then I met my partner, who I ended up getting married to. We're no longer together now, but we were in a place where we started talking about having kids.
Yeah.
And I initially doubted myself. I was like, I now would say things in my head like, I can barely take care of myself. How am I going to take care of a child? But I realized that that was just my insecurity speaking, and it was really being like hyperbolic about things, because actually I really take good care of myself, right? Like, yes, a caregiver comes in the morning to help me out of bed, to get me into the bathroom, to assist me with getting dressed. But I'm coordinating all that care. I'm paying for it. I'm coordinating it. I'm advocating for myself. I'm telling her how to do things. We all use tools in our life, right? And sometimes we become reliant on those tools. But that doesn't it doesn't make us any less competent. And so I went to a doctor, a high-risk pregnancy doctor, to kind of consult about what it would look like to become pregnant and have a baby. And this woman was so supportive, and that was kind of all I needed to
Right.
like give myself permission to go forward with it.
I want to pause you there for really fast because I do think that reframe that you just did is so powerful. It's, you may not have all the physical capabilities that a woman does when they're in their childbearing years, but the reframe of just looking at your abilities from the way that you are prepared and can execute and are capable of affording certain the things that you need is a really powerful way of like for everybody to look at things. Like just because things may not look normal or right or perfect doesn't mean that you're not capable of. It just means that you have to fill that void. You have to figure it out how that looks for you. And I'd
Mhm.
imagine that that's something that persists, right? Remind me, how old are your kids now?
So actually, they're 5, so I had them in my mid-30s, but yeah, they're
Yes.
5. And I should mention I have twins, so
Yeah,
that's
right. So twins, like just to add, like, I mean, Danny, seriously,
yeah,
like
well, I didn't expect that I was gonna have twins, so that was
I
sort of
b I think
the
that's the theme
thing
of your
there.
life, right? You didn't
Yeah,
expect this injury. You didn't
right.
expect to do this paralyzed, and then you have twins, which I
Yeah.
imagine you knew you were having twins, right? Like, tell us about that a little bit more.
We got pregnant right away, and
Wow.
I thought I assumed I was having 1. Then we went in for that checkup, and they said, "There's 2 in there." And I was like, "What the
Yeah,
fuck?"
seriously.
Okay. And like, I am such a planner, and I had this whole plan about, like, and just all these ideas and creative sort of solutions to how I was going to be a mom, especially at the beginning when, you've got an infant and it's really hard physically, like, it's very demanding. And I was just like, "Well, all that's out the window, so I guess I'm just gonna wing it."
Amazing.
But yeah, the twins were completely random, just
What
spontaneous.
I have to ask you, Danny, what was the reaction of your family when you told them?
Yeah, everybody was shocked. Everyone was shocked, but overjoyed, and maybe a
I
little
mean, they're
scared.
yeah, and a little scared. So, twins is already considered high risk. You are obviously a high risk.
Yeah,
Can you talk to me about a little bit more about what that pregnancy
yeah,
journey
yeah.
was like?
Yeah, well, just to add another layer to it,
Oh, goodness. There's more? But wait, there's more?
yeah, so I found out I was pregnant in 2019. Okay. So, and then, the nice thing is I was already in with those high-risk pregnancy doctors, those specialist OBs, and so when I found out it was twins, they were like, "Okay, great, it's okay. You're in good hands. yes, you're quadriplegic and you're having multiples. It's double high risk, but we're going to take care of you. It's nothing we can't handle. And then 2020 rolls around, rolls around. And I actually remembered my baby shower was the day before everything shut down.
Wow.
Um,
So March, like 12th-ish.
yeah, something like that. And
Yeah.
and then yeah, so the rest of the end part of my pregnancy and early motherhood journey was colored by COVID,
Mm.
which, you know, at the beginning, nobody knew what was going on, right? Like I don't think we need to I know we don't need to get into the weeds about COVID, but I was high risk. That's all I knew because of my lung function being compromised from the paralysis in my diaphragm and my core.
Yeah.
And so I always had to be very careful, even about flu, RSV, all that stuff. Plus, I was pregnant. The babies came and they were premature, so they were high risk as well. So it was was really scary. It was a scary, scary time, and I'd say that was the most challenging.
How did you and do you keep your head right? Just
Um,
mentally. How do you
y-
what are
well,
some
I
of
think
the tools and tactics that you use? Because I mean, for some, perhaps this is just my insecurity. I, I would imagine there's a lot of moments of why me. And perhaps you didn't go through that, but what have you told, what has your brain told you and what have you told that your brain back so that you can keep going and stay
yeah,
positive?
no, I mean initially it's been a long time. I've had this injury for a long time, so initially the first 2 or 3 years I was not in a good place. And people were always like, "If anyone can do this, you can do it, Danny." Definitely my friends saw something in me, but I didn't feel it. I was like, "No, I am scared. I don't want this. Why me? And no, I'm not courageous. I don't, you all see something intrinsic in me. I don't." Right. And I struggled. I went to a deep, dark, black place initially. And I just started rebuilding my life. I'd say one of the biggest things that helped empower me was the disability community and becoming a part of that community and meeting other disabled individuals who didn't necessarily see the disability or the lifestyle as all negative.
Yeah.
Certainly there's challenges, but that really grounded me. Having people kind of living their lives the way they wanted to against all odds and against all the assumptions that the world has about what we can and can't accomplish and what we can and can't do. And so that was very empowering and really helped my overall attitude. And I think having a spinal cord injury is a really tragic thing to happen. It's one of the worst things that could happen to you next to a cancer diagnosis or a progressive illness or other horrible traumatic things. But because of that, it was any challenge after that was easier.
Right.
And so I was kind of equipped. And even
Right.
my OB told me that. And I was like, this is why I like this guy because he said to me, if there's anybody that can do this, you can. He said, your disability prepared you for this pregnancy. And I was like, wow, that's unheard of. I heard the opposite from my friends with spinal cord injuries, hearing doctors and nurses telling them that they shouldn't because it wasn't it wasn't the medical thing that was a concern. It was the sort of assumptions that were being made that were just not right.
Right.
They're relevant, completely false.
It's so beautiful on so many levels. And to hear, you hear so many negatives about the healthcare system and doctors not taking certain cases seriously and how defeating certain people, especially women in pregnancy, can feel.
Yeah.
And it's so uplifting to hear the experience that you had of someone that really, it sounds like, empowered you to say, no, your instincts are right, Danny. You want this. Number one, you want this, and your body can do this. If you've already gotten this far,
Yeah.
then you're ready. I
Yeah.
just think that's so great.
It is great, and I feel lucky and privileged that I had such remarkable individuals taking care of me during that pregnancy and empowering me again, like with, and having our attitudes about it all were aligned.
Yeah.
But the lesson there is never settle. Like when you're looking for care providers or doctors, you're you're shopping, you
Yeah.
know? You don't have to do what they say. You can keep looking around till you find something that works for you. I know there's like a lot of limitations around insurance and where you live and things like that, but I think at least just keeping that mindset is really important.
So, Danny, I think part of what your story is miraculous in so many levels. Of course, the fact that you had these twins is amazing, but then you have to raise these twins. What does help look like? What does coordination look like on a day to day?
So the first 3 years was kind of like, all right, I just have to accept that I'm never going to be able to be alone with them at this and during this period of life. So I had to kind of wrap my head around that and just make my peace with it. That, you know, that was just what life was going to look like. So I did need a lot of hands-on care. I needed somebody there near me with my kids. I couldn't just like take them out by myself when they were that
Right.
little. I couldn't like can't get them in the car seat and it's in and out of a car and it's way too much. So I just accepted that and that really helped. Just like accepting it
Yeah.
really helps because it takes an emotional load, a mental load and anxiety off of you. If you can just accept where you are, sometimes, like, it's really helpful.
And
And just remember it's temporary, okay, like, I will get this back. In like, future Danny is gonna things will look different, and I'll regain more independence or, um, whatever it is.
And to be specific, the help that you said can you never be alone. Were these were these professionals, caregivers stepping in? Was it friends and family? Like how did like
Yeah.
what did that actually look like logistically for you?
Well, during COVID, it was mostly my kid's dad. So we were living together. We were married. So it was just really the two of us in baby boot camp. And we figured out like what the thing, like anyone, I think, when they have baby, what can you do and
Right.
what can I do? Like
Right.
it was really challenging because babies particularly have needs that only the mom can fulfill, right?
Sure.
I actually was breastfeeding for
Of
6
course you
months,
were.
and of course, I left such an overachiever, right? But,
Of course you were.
and, so he really had to help facilitate my ability to be a mom in that way.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it would look and then he was in charge of, like, diapers, that was 100% him, which is great. I didn't no complaints there. So, yeah, we figured out how to do, like, a division of labor
Yeah.
that worked for us.
So fast forward a bit, now that the twins are 5, my question is more around how do your kids you? Like, at 5, your kids are way more aware that you might look
Mhm.
and have to do things differently. So
Yeah.
what do those conversations look like?
Yeah, so they're just starting to really, like, understand like, what it means, you know?
Yeah.
They've always seen people caring for me, like, doing things to care for me. And so they kind of naturally have this caregiver instinct themselves. I'm very intentional about not putting them in a situation where they feel that they have to take care of me or do things. I am having them start to like contribute at home with like, you know, putting their dishes away or like,
Yeah.
picking things up off the floor, which happened to help me as a disabled woman and just like it's just polite, right? Like that's what everyone would do anyway, but they are particularly helpful to me because if there's toys on the floor, I can't get through the room,
Right.
and if I try to take the dishes to the sink, I might drop them and break them and spill food everywhere. But so like I do it in a way where it's like, okay, they get certain tasks there that any child, would have. but I don't ever like put any other kind of responsibility on them. So, my personal needs and my, yeah, that is just for whoever comes in that I employ as my caregiver.
Danny, do they ask questions? Like, are
Yeah,
they
so they
curious?
started asking like, well, they've always I always told them that I have a disability, and I didn't go into the accident or like the medical side of it. I just said, "Mommy's different. I have a disability," and I use that exact word because I don't see that word as a negative. I see it as neutral. And then you
Yeah.
can fill in the blanks however whatever works for you, right? So I always taught them that disability was a neutral thing, and because I know the way they feel about it is gonna change. But so long as we
Yeah.
have this, like, neutral baseline, mommy has a disability. We don't
Yeah.
need to, like, attach anything to that yet right now.
Right, it just is. It just
Yeah,
is a
it
thing, and
because
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was like, "Well, I could teach them that, like, I'm this empowered disabled woman." Totally, I want them to have that. But I also want them if they have any grief about it, I also want them to be able to feel that and share it with me and not feel bad.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's why I kinda, like, I try to, like, allow space for anything and for them to kind of, like, figure it out, and I guide them a little bit. So where they're starting to learn more is, people at school, kids at school or teachers, like, start being curious and asking questions, and then they'll come home, and then I'll start answering my questions because 'cause they'll start saying, "Well, well, why? Like, why did you break your neck, and why does that mean that you can't move or you can't walk?" So I'll start telling them. And it's just like, you have like an intuition for it. When is it developmentally appropriate to like share things with them, and how are they doing? They
Danny, how is that experience for you? Like, do you find it to be cathartic answering those questions? Does it take you back into those
can
early
be
years?
hard.
Like,
It's
what's
like,
that
yeah.
experience like
Yeah,
for
it can be
you?
really uncomfortable and triggering sometimes, like, to
Yeah.
hear especially when this kind of reveals some of their grief about it, like,
Yeah.
one of my daughters was like, "Oh, mommy, I wish that you could run with me. You run." And I'm just like, "Oh, that stings bad, right? Oof." But and I'm like, "I wish it too. Like, I wish I could too." And I say but then I, like, kinda console her and say, "But there's all these other wonderful things that we get to do together. You get to ride on my lap, and, we play all kinds of games and go out and do fun things and travel," and so she that, yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier, you are now doing this without your partner, or your
Mm.
partner is no longer married to you, which
Yeah.
is opens up a whole other kind of subset, another new chapter for you.
Yeah.
Emotionally, how have you kind of filled that void, knowing that you were used to not just the physical set of hands, but
Mhm.
an emotional partner that you could be dependent on? How has that looked?
It was really hard and scary at first because I think when I got together with him, I was, like, hyper independent within, like, my limitations as a quadriplegic, but I was like, "I'm gonna do everything as much as I can myself." And then I, opened up and, you know, e developed an emotional bond and trusted him, and so I let him help me, and then over time, I let myself become more dependent, right? And then and not just emotionally and, like, I really kind of set up our life just, like, knowing that he can help, right?
Yeah,
And so when the relationship ended, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to
yeah,
figure this I have to build a new infrastructure for myself." So it wasn't just, like, the grief and the loss and the emotional journey, which is so brutal and hard, but,
mm,
like, it was, okay, I also literally have to rethink, like, how am I gonna get food? How am I gonna take them to the doctor? How am I gonna get them to school? Where am I gonna live? Like, it was scary, but yeah, you just do I just did it, dealt with it. So here I
Yeah.
am.
Again, on a day-to-day basis, like, what do you tell yourself? Like, I would imagine there's so many highs and lows throughout your day. What are you telling yourself that allows you to keep going and
No,
progressing?
there's not, because I can't live that way. Like, I don't wanna have highs and lows. Like,
Okay.
I wanna be
Elaborate.
happy. Like, I wanna be at peace, and I wanna be at peace. I love life. Like, I am a very enthusiastic, joyful person. Like, I'm the type of person that's just enthused and, like, motivated by all the wonderful things.
Yeah.
There are low moments, right? But I definitely
Right.
wouldn't wanna be I try to I really try to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. So, especially after, you know, heartbreak, right? I think a lot of women this age who go through divorce kind of really have to learn that concept of like self-love, right? How do you take care of yourself? Not just the concrete physical things, but like emotionally.
Yeah, and, like,
So
are
I've been
you
focusing
do
a
you
lot on.
actually feel that internal peace? I think that's what a lot of women
Mhm.
seek. It's
Yeah, like, how
it's
do you
it's
fill
the
your own
type.
cup? Yeah. And it's good because, like, you know, so my daughters are seeing that, and I always remind myself, it's like, I'm modeling to them
Yeah, yeah,
who they
wonderful.
can be someday.
Danny, I would imagine there's gonna be so many people that say, "Oh my god, this woman is superwoman. I wanna support her. I what should people know? How could they support your work? How can they support you?" Because it really is your it's such a phenomenal story, but it is your life, and I know that there are ways that people wanna contribute towards that in big ways and small ways. So as we wrap up here, where can people find out more information about you and what you're doing to support yourself and the broader
Yeah.
community?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I don't have any, like, mm, uh, I don't have anything like that I don't have any needs around needing support right now, I guess, in that way. Like, I definitely love, like, hearing from people and connecting, especially with other women. I am a business owner, I didn't mention that, so, and I think, like, right now my focus is to hustle, but I have so much on my plate that I don't wanna be like, "Oh, help me get more clients," because I can only handle so many right now, as you know, we talked about it, but
But you know what, Danny, that's the point I wanna also highlight is that you are a business owner, so you're doing
yeah.
this with a business, and I think so
Mhm.
even if, they can't support you directly, like, it's just also another way of empowering people that you are not your diagnosis, you're not your disability,
Yeah.
is so long as you have the will, like, you can find the way through, and that's what you've shared with us today.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is to be in community. And for me, that's support, like to have a community around me, even if it's virtual, even if it's online, to
Yeah.
have especially other women, disabled or not, right? Who get it. We're there, who can give a listening ear, who can say, hey, you're doing a good job, and who can kind of like carry the torch forward and like support, be able to support and empower other women and to be able to, if anything, I would love people to listen to this podcast and be like, oh, I never thought of disabilities that way. Like this is interesting. Like I think I'd like to learn more. I think I'd like to learn more about how the experience can actually be empowering versus disempowering.
Danny, you're amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super grateful for your very precious and important time. And I look forward to seeing how you continue to blossom in this next chapter and hopefully many opportunities to work with you further. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a
Talk
good
to you
day.
soon.
Thanks so much.